My name is Naomi Travers. I'm 29, and on Tuesday at 11:47 p.m., my phone screen flashed with a message that seemed to deliberately want to reshape my life. Moving in Friday, Mom's already said yes, clear out the guest room. No question mark, no please, just an order, dry and blunt. I read the message twice, then again, as if it were a riddle where the correct answer was supposed to be my submission. Moving in. As if my home were a spare booth in a diner, and I was a napkin dispenser that was supposed to work flawlessly. I scrolled through the messages. The last time Kayla, my younger sister, had written was 3 months ago, when she'd borrowed my car and returned it with a new dent in the bumper and an empty gas tank. According to her, I'd come upon this. Before that, 6 months ago, she'd begged for money for urgent repairs on the same car, and 2 days later she posted a story from a casino under sparkling lights and the caption, "The happiest girl in the world." I called. Beeps, beeps, answering machine. I called again, same result. The third time she picked up to a booming bass and someone's loud laughter. "Yo, what's up?" she yelled, as if I'd dragged her on stage in the middle of a show. "What's the message?" I asked. "What?" "About Friday, about you moving in." Pause. Then, "Oh, right, Brandon and I are coming for a couple of months. Mom said you have a spare room. It's family, Naomi. You can't say no." There it is, the word that used to click through me like hypnosis. Family. A universal pass, a manipulator key. When Dad needed a co-borrower because his credit history had burned to ashes, family. When my sister needed a free sitter because she deserved a vacation, family. When Kayla totaled her first car and wanted me to lie to the insurance company, family. "Kayla," I said evenly, "I never talked to Mom about any of that." "Well, she promised to talk. What's the difference?" "A big one. Mom doesn't live here. I live here." Silence. Then an indignant snort. "Are you serious? We need 3, maybe 4 months, maybe 6 if Brandon's work drags on." 3 to 6 months, I repeated, like a waitress announcing an unpaid bill. "No." "What's your problem? You live alone. You have tons of space." I remembered the night when, at 23, I curled up in the back seat of my hatchback, eating dry oatmeal and drinking water, and convincing myself the dashboard light was a fireplace. My guest room wasn't empty at all. It was a monument. My desk, my second monitor, my neatly labeled archive boxes. A room that quietly said, "You survived. You built this." "I'm not a shelter for relatives," I said. "Tough." "Precisely," I replied, and hit reset. The phone immediately exploded. "Mom, Kayla says you're being stubborn. Don't be selfish." "Dad, your mom is upset. Call her." "Kayla, wow. I'll remember this for when you need." I put the phone face down and listened to the ticking of my ribs. I wasn't angry anymore. I was awake. And awake people make plans. By 2 a.m, the plan was ready. At 9:07 a.m., I called the security company. "Full perimeter," I said. "All doors, all windows, cameras, doorbell, audio, motion sensors, backup battery." "Vacation?" the technician asked tearfully. "Prevention." By evening, a stern man of about 40 had turned my house into a mini fortress. The front door, the back door, the garage, the first floor windows, all equipped with sensors, alarms, red LEDs. I tested them like a child tests a new tablet. Alarm, front door open. Alarm, motion detected. And the best part? 2-way audio. My doorstep had officially become a courtroom. Then I did a small, disgustingly pleasant thing. I recorded a greeting. "Hello, you've reached a private residence. If you don't have an appointment, please leave. Smile, you're on hold." Next, I called Derek, a friend who reads bylaws like others read horoscopes. Hypothetically, I began. If someone tries to move in without permission, it's trespassing, he interrupted. If they didn't give you a key, it's forced entry. Do you need a cease and desist letter template? Yes, 2. One for Kayla and one for my mother. He whistled. No snacks, huh? I'm already full. Check your email tomorrow. At midnight, I was making coffee, unapologizing to my racing pulse. The old scenario, where the word family broke me in half, was over. My home wasn't a community project, and my life wasn't a shared space. On Thursday morning, my mom left a voicemail for 3 minutes. It started with, "I'm disappointed," and ended with, "Family must stick together." Not a word about asking me, not a word about my mortgage, just the tone of a queen denied an audience. Delete. Kayla, you're making us homeless. I looked at the message like a cheap prop. Homeless, while she posted photos from the apartment where she lived. I didn't reply. Instead, I printed out both of Derek's letters on the most expensive paper. For Kayla Morrison. For Linda Morrison. In the middle, a bold line like a judge's blow. Any attempt to enter, occupy, or claim occupancy at my address without my written permission is a violation of the law. This is being videotaped. All unauthorized entries will be reported to the police. On Friday morning, I placed the envelopes by the door, armed the alarm, and went to work at a coffee shop 3 blocks away. I opened the Ring app and sat there like a spectator at a premiere. At 10:47, a vibration. Alarm, movement at the front door. There they were. Kayla, her hair in a tight, messy bun, her oversized glasses, her jaw clenched. Brandon, with his suitcases and a pompous sigh. The U-Haul, like a yellow predator, blocks the entrance. Kayla rings the doorbell. "Hello, you've reached a private residence," my voice rings out. "If you don't have an appointment, please leave. Smile, you're being filmed." She squints at the camera. "Naomi," she sing-songs sweetly, like a trap. "Open." I press the audio button. "Kayla, you're unwelcome. Go away." The smile fades. "Seriously? We drove 3 hours." I said no. You ignored me. This is trespassing. "This is family," she blurts out, as if it were a password. "This is my home. You have 10 seconds to leave, or I'm calling the police." "Wow," Brandon mutters, tugging at the handle. The door doesn't budge. He tugs harder. 10, I say. 9, 8. The phone beeps. "Mom, let them in." "Dad, be reasonable." 7, 6. Brandon is already pounding his fist. Kayla turns purple. 5, 4. "This is emotional abuse," she announces into the camera, as if a caption could erase the fact. 3, 2. I press the alarm. Siren, flashes, and a line, like credits. Siren activated. Police called. I leaned back in my coffee shop chair, took a long, almost theatrically slow sip, and watched my own porch transform into a fanged border crossing. The couple at the next table glanced at me, whether in surprise or curiosity, at my quiet sigh of relief. I simply smiled into the void, savoring that rare taste, when your plan works perfectly. I caught my gaze in the reflection of the laptop screen. Yes, her face was tired, but there was something new in it, a toughness that wouldn't waver even when weighed down by the full weight of family expectations. The phone buzzed again, the name that always softened me, Ethan. "Naomi, are you okay? Do you want me to come over?" I answered briefly, "I'm fine. I'll call you later." A pause, and then, "Proud of you." My chest tightened, as if someone had momentarily loosened a tight belt around my ribs. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I could almost hear that old woman, the one who apologized for simply existing. Now she was silent, but the siren on my porch wasn't silent. It was wailing. A blue flash flickered across the screen as a patrol car pulled up. Kayla flinched. Brandon let go of the door handle. The officers stepped out. The eldest, with the expression of someone who had seen this kind of family drama dozens of times, only the actors had changed. "Ma'am, sir, step away from the door." Kayla turned, her voice rising like a poorly tuned violin. "Officer, my sister won't let us in." I closed my laptop, stood up, and grabbed my keys. I wanted to see this scene with my own eyes. Not for revenge. For the Naomi of old who once slept in her car and swore, if I ever got my own house, I'd learn to lock my doors. When I pulled up, the street looked like someone had forgotten to take down a parade. The U-Haul was parked askew. Kayla and Brandon were arguing. 2 police officers stood frozen between them and my door, where the alarm still flashed red like an angry eye. I parked across the street and calmly stepped out. "Good afternoon. I'm the landlord." The senior officer turned to me, his face a professional mask. "Are you Miss Travers?" "Yes, the system detected a break-in attempt. Is the situation under control?" "Basically, yes. They were trying to move in." Kayla's voice jumped up. "We didn't break in. Mom said we could stay. She's turning everything upside down." I looked her straight in the eye. "This is an invasion, Kayla. You don't live here." Brandon lifted his chin, folding his arms across his chest, as if he were about to play the offended hero. "We drove 3 hours. We didn't think you'd actually lock us out." "I didn't lock you out," I replied evenly. "You just weren't invited." The junior officer watched the conversation as if it were a match where the ball was flying too fast. "Ma'am, would you like to submit a report?" He turned to me. The world froze. Even the wind seemed to stop. Kayla's face fell. "You're kidding," she whispered. I looked at her, at this mixture of shock and the familiar expectation that I would give in, and I saw before me the girl who had once broken my necklace and demanded another. I sighed. "Not today, but if they come back, yes." The senior officer nodded. "Understood. You two need to leave, and don't return without the owner's permission." Kayla's voice cracked. "Are you really doing this?" "Yes," I replied, and I didn't blink. Brandon muttered something about ungrateful families and climbed into the truck. Kayla paused for a second, hoping the old scenario would work. No, not this time. Realizing this, she followed him. As the U-Haul rolled out of the driveway, the senior officer handed me a business card. "If they come back, call us right away. Family or not, boundaries are important." Boundaries are important. The words fell so hard and clear that I almost saw my therapist, who had been repeating these very words for years. When the police left, silence returned. Only Mrs. Chen from the house across the street cautiously peeked out from behind the curtain. I waved at her. She nodded, the look of someone who knows what it's like to deal with difficult children and even more difficult adults. I turned off the alarm and walked in. The house smelled of lavender and safety. For a second. Then my phone exploded with vibrations. Calls, messages, reproaches. "Mom, how could you? Kayla's crying. Are you a beast?" "Dad, call Mom, now." "Kayla, enjoy your fort. You'll be alone." I set the chat to silent and went to make coffee. I wasn't going to explain anything to anyone. But when the doorbell rang an hour later, I jumped. I checked the camera. Not Kayla. Mom, in her church attire, with her perfect bun and a roast in the pan, as if the world could be fixed with a casserole. I put her on speakerphone. "Mom, now's not a good time." Her eyes widened. Can you see me? Yes, you're on camera. Naomi, let me in. We need to talk. There's nothing to talk about. Kayla tried to force her way in. She was just trying to move in, just like I told her. You can't decide that for me. Her lips tightened. I'm your mother. I know, but I'm not opening the door. Sorry? My voice broke. I said no, you don't have permission to be here. Please leave. I'm not leaving. I pressed the button. A siren blared on the porch. Mom recoiled. What is this? The alarm. It goes off if they don't leave. You wouldn't dare. I just called the police on Kayla. You can check. She stood there, her body shaking with anger and humiliation. What happened to you? You were such a good girl. Translation: convenient, obedient, guilty. I've grown up. Now, go away. She slammed the dish onto the porch, the lid slamming. Fine, but don't come to me and complain when you need something. I won't. She drove away, leaving the steaming roast on my doorstep, a monument to passive aggression. I left it there for an hour, then threw it out without even looking under the lid. The smell of melted cheese and resentment hung in the house. That evening, I poured myself a glass of wine, sent Ethan a quick "everything's settled," and settled into the couch. The house was quiet, the phone was silent, the lock was solid. And for the first time in years, I felt a strange, almost forgotten feeling, a peace that didn't need to be explained to anyone. The next morning, I was awakened by a barrage of notifications, 27. Messages, voicemails, social media messages. Aunt Carol, we're praying for you and Kayla. Jennifer, call the police on your sister? Harsh. Uncle Rob, your mom's been murdered. Grandma, what's going on? Your mom's been crying all day. I skimmed through everything and filed it away. No explanations, no excuses. They'd chosen a side before they even knew the facts. As always. Around noon, the bell rang again. The camera showed Kayla, but not alone. With her were Mom, Dad, Aunt Carol, and a woman with a tablet. My stomach twisted uncomfortably. Kayla waved cheerfully at the camera. We're not leaving until you come out to talk. Mom added, you can't just cut family out. I stood there, looking at them all through the camera, when Dad stepped forward, as if about to deliver his verdict. Naomi, this has gone too far. We've brought in a mediator. Mediator. I barely restrained myself from laughing. The woman in the neat jacket and tablet smirked professionally, as if she were about to sell me insurance. Hello, I'm Nancy. I understand there's a conflict. I'm here to help facilitate a productive dialogue. I didn't agree to mediation, I said evenly, almost calmly. Nancy's smile widened, as if she were being pulled by strings. That's exactly the kind of communication gap we can bridge. There's no breakup. I said no. They heard it and decided to ignore it. That's the whole conflict. Mom sobbed as if her baby had been stolen. Please, dear, just 10 minutes. 10 seconds, I snapped. Go away. Kayla's face twisted. Are you being ridiculous? All this over one room? It's not about the room. It's about the respect you never gave me. Dad raised his hands, trying to create the illusion of calm. Everyone's calmed down. That's why we need to talk in person. We won't. I inhaled. 10, 9. Mom burst into even louder tears, the same practiced cry that had been turning me into a wimp for years. 8, 7. Dad's face turned to stone. You're making a mistake. 6.5. Kayla shrieked, this is insane! 4, 3. I raised the phone to my ear. 911, what's your emergency? Nancy's smile faltered for the first time. Ms. Travers, that's not necessary. There are several trespassers on my property, I told the dispatcher. They've been officially banned from returning. Sirens wailed somewhere in the distance. Nancy retreated first, quickly, decisively. I think I'll go. That's a great idea. She practically ran to her car. Aunt Carol tugged at Mom. Linda, let's go. Mom broke away. She's bluffing. Dad, quietly, tiredly. She's not bluffing. Look at her. Blue and red reflections reflected on their faces, a family theater of the absurd in its final act. Dad grabbed Kayla by the shoulder. Let's go. They scattered in different directions like cockroaches in a light, just as the patrol car pulled up. The same officers. The eldest looked at me with such weary familiarity, as if we'd worked together. Here we are again. They brought in a mediator this time. He blinked. Who? A family therapist, the unwanted one. He pinched the bridge of his nose, like a man who's seen too much, too often. Want to file a restraining order? I looked at the yard, at the footprints, at the chaos they left behind, and nodded. Yes, I do. A wise decision. We'll prepare the paperwork, submit it on Monday. After they left, I stood in the doorway, the dark stains from the abandoned roast still lingering nearby, and for the first time I felt silence. Pure, confident. I no longer negotiated my boundaries. I guarded them. And now, they were running. On Monday, I walked into the courthouse at 8:30 with a thick folder under my arm. Security footage, screenshots, messages, Kayla's social media complaints. The clerk glanced at me. A restraining order? Yes. She pushed the forms toward me. The temporary restraining order goes into effect today. The hearing is in 2 weeks. 2 weeks, 14 days for them to learn boundaries aren't a request. By noon, the notice arrived. The papers had been served. Derek wrote, Your mom cried. Dad is threatening legal action. Kayla asked if it was considered a violation to message you on Instagram. I didn't even answer. For 2 days, there was dead silence. No knocks, no phone calls, no tearful scenes. Just me and the house. I almost believed the storm had passed until Wednesday arrived. First, the lights flickered. Then they went out. The refrigerator went silent. The air conditioner died. The house was like a body whose heart had suddenly stopped. I grabbed my phone, 67%, and realized the cameras weren't working. The electrical panel. Throwing on a jacket and holding a flashlight, I stepped out into the cold night. The air smelled of rain, of metal. The lock on the circuit breaker box had been cut off, smoothly, neatly, like a surgical incision. Someone had pulled every single switch. My throat tightened. They wanted to say, "We can still get to you." I turned the power back on. The house came to life. The lights flickered, the equipment hummed. Then she immediately called the police. The same officers. The senior officer crouched by the control panel. It was deliberate sabotage, tool marks, and you have an active ban, right? Yes. Then it's an official violation. Nobody was caught on camera. They disabled the system first. He stood up. Cunning. Buy backup batteries and a proper lock. You're a target. He was right. After they left, I checked every window and sat down on the couch, my phone glowing in the dark. Ethan was texting. Are you okay? Your power was flickering. Do you want me to come? I looked at his name, feeling the thought of not being alone no longer seem like weakness. I'm okay, really. I'm just tired of the circus. He answered immediately. You don't deserve this. Call me if anything strange happens. I didn't sleep that night. I listened to the refrigerator and thought about how soft revenge sounds when carried out by familiar hands. At dawn, I ordered everything the officer recommended: batteries, a new lock, indoor cameras. The next morning struck at 5:47. The doorbell pierced the silence. I opened the feed and almost laughed in shock. Kayla was standing on my porch with a cardboard sign. "My sister won't let me in. Help." And she was broadcasting live. Comments appeared on her phone screen. So cruel. This is abuse. Girlfriend, go viral. My vision darkened. She hadn't come here for a conversation. She had come for a show. I turned on the audio. "Kayla, leave immediately." She beamed at the camera. "See, she's not even trying to talk. She's cutting me off emotionally. It's 65 degrees outside. You're violating the restraining order. Leave before I call the police." She turned to the... See, the controlling sister is threatening to call the police again. "Okay," I said evenly. "Let's give them a show." I dialed 911, looking straight at her. The dispatcher sighed when he recognized the address. "The offender again?" "Yes, and she has a restraining order in effect." A siren appeared on the horizon before I could blink. My confidence vanished during Kayla's broadcast. Her face went white. "Wait, Naomi, please!" And she ran to the car, forgetting about the sign, about the broadcast, about everything. I saved the recording and sent it to Derek. "She brought the evidence herself," I wrote. A reply came a couple of minutes later. "Now your restraining order is bulletproof." And for the first time in a long time, I smiled, completely calmly. By Friday, things had gone too far to be dismissed as coincidence. Derek sent me a screenshot from the Morrison family chat. "Mom, we need to get into that house. Find anything we can use." "Dad, the lawyer said we need proof she's unstable." "Kayla, what if we just go in while she's gone?" "Aunt Carol, it's a break-in." "Kayla, not if Mom has a key." "Mom, I don't have a key." "Kayla, well, can I make a copy?" I read it 3 times, and each time my heart pounded harder, as if it were trying to break through my ribcage. They were discussing a real break-in. I forwarded the entire correspondence to the police, sent it to Derek, added it to my evidence folder, and immediately ordered 2 more security cameras. If they try to break in, I want to see everything, every word, every breath, every step. 2 days later, Ethan called one night. I saw Kayla's live stream. It popped up in my feed. My palms were sweating. Oh my God, what are people writing? Half of them say you're heartless, the other half say you're pulling her strings, but that's not what worries me. What? Sabrina reposted it. The name hit me like ice water. Ethan's ex, a perpetual source of drama even after everyone else had gone home. She'd signed it, "Some people like to be victims of their own egos." I closed my eyes. Of course, who else? "I blocked her," he said. "But Naomi, you're trending locally right now." "Great," I muttered. All I wanted was silence, and at least one Saturday without someone filming my front door. Ethan paused. "I'm serious. Be careful. People like to watch fires until they start to burn." Too late, I breathed out. I spent the weekend strengthening my world, like I was building a concrete skeleton around my life. New passwords, independent backups, cameras synced to a secure cloud. I even printed out all the photos of the evidence, because people like my family don't just cross the line, they redraw it however they please. For the first time in my life, I felt neither intimidated nor paranoid, but prepared. But in the silence of the night, one thought clawed at me from within. If my own mother was capable of cutting off my electricity just to be right, what will she do next? The next week was so quiet that the silence seemed artificial, sticky, like the air before a storm. No phone calls, no knocks on the door, not a single suspicious car beneath the windows. Just a viscous pause that made me want to ask, have they given up, or are they waiting for me to blink? I didn't blink. I turned the silence into a workflow. Every morning before heading to work, I synced my phone, downloaded CCTV footage, and sorted it by date. The folder on my desktop, the Morrison's incident, was growing daily. Police reports, screenshots of screenshots, even my mom's posts calling me a proud lost daughter. Derek called on Thursday. "You're a lawyer's dream," he said. "Everything is time-stamped." "Okay," I replied. "I won't let them twist the story to suit themselves anymore." He sighed. "Just be careful. Your sister is still making waves online." That was putting it mildly. Checking Facebook, I saw a grainy screenshot of her live stream. "My sister Naomi won't let me into our family home and is calling the police. For some, family means nothing." I almost shuddered. Our family home. A home that didn't exist until I bought it myself. At the bottom, Sabrina Lee's comment. "I've always said Naomi is a control freak. Looks like she's proven that." A dagger. Not because it's true, but because it's public. I closed the app. They need me to snap, I told myself, and I won't let that happen. A couple of days later, a letter arrived in the mail about the upcoming hearing. A week later. 7 days until I could breathe without the expectation of a stab in the back. But on Sunday morning, another envelope showed up. Mailed. No return address. Inside were printed screenshots of my messages to Ethan, cropped as if I was mocking my family. They'll explode if I say no. It's funny to watch them panic. Except I never wrote the second sentence. Someone had faked my messages. I felt everything inside me collapse. I called Ethan. He answered on the first ring. "Naomi, they're trying to make you look unstable. These fake screenshots." "I know." He exhaled loudly. Sabrina already reposted them. "Of course. Who else?" "I'll figure it out. I'll tell everyone they're fake." "No," I said, surprising both him and myself. "Don't get involved. That's all they're waiting for." But the evidence will speak for itself. There was more than just stubbornness in my voice. There was a burnout, the kind that comes when you realize even victory won't bring relief, only silence. On Wednesday at 4:12, my phone vibrated. Alarm, movement in the living room. My heart exploded in my chest. I opened the app and froze. There was someone in the frame, a man. The silhouette moved slowly, confidently, the flashlight beam cut through the darkness. He walked closer to the camera, leaned in, and whispered, "You shouldn't have done that." "Dad." He turned, grabbed something from the counter, my spare keys, and left through the back door. The camera went dark. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. I dialed 911. The dispatcher recognized my voice. Minutes later, a patrol car pulled up to the house. They combed everything. No one. An open drawer in the kitchen. The keys were missing. The senior officer frowned. "You're lucky you had cameras. His face is clearly visible. This is a break-in, and with a restraining order in place, no less. He's going to the station." I simply nodded. I knew something like this was inevitable. Before leaving, the officer said, "You'll have to talk about this at the hearing. Bring the recording." "I will." He smiled slightly. "You're tougher than you look." When the door closed behind him, I simply sank onto the couch. I didn't cry. I just watched the camera show my father's face over and over again. The next day, everything unfolded in waves. Mom posted a litany of text. Parents make mistakes when they're driven to despair. Pray for understanding. Kayla reposted with tears emoji. Aunt Carol added, "We don't know what Naomi's going through, but she needs forgiveness." Grandma, families should heal, not punish. If it weren't for my reality, their ability to rewrite events to fit their narrative could almost be called a talent. I added every post, every comment, every timestamp to my thick folder of evidence. Receipts aren't revenge, they're insurance. 2 days before the hearing, Derek called again. "Your father was booked. He gave an explanation. He said he thought you were in danger." I gave a short, dry laugh. He broke in to save me. Convenient version, huh? I wiped my eyes. He stole my spare keys. That's theft too. The judge will appreciate that. He paused. "Naomi, you need distance. To get away, at least for a little while. To Chicago, for example. Your company has a project there." He was right. But part of me clung to the house, to my space, to what I had built myself. Why should I leave again? But I promised to think about it. That night, while the rain pounded furiously against the glass, I sat in the dimly lit living room and, almost in a whisper, recited the final line of my own case. They thought boundaries were invitations. They were warnings. The folder on the coffee table gleamed in the lamplight. Each page, my story, neatly printed and numbered. When the hearing came, I wouldn't have to scream, argue, or plead. It would be enough to simply open the folder and show them what they had done. This time, no one would rewrite the ending. The courthouse smelled of paper and anxiety. Thursday, 8:30 a.m. I sat in the hallway, holding the folder in my lap, the sections lined up, the tabs in place, the break-in log, the police reports, the fake screenshots, the social media posts. 2 weeks of waiting had stretched on forever, but now it was all here within 4 walls. At 8:50 they arrived. Mom, Dad, Kayla, and some lawyer in a cheap suit and tie that looked like it had been given to him at a company party. He was holding a stack of papers he hadn't even really looked at. Kayla met my gaze, cold, accusing. Mom looked rumpled, but there wasn't a shred of remorse in her expression, only hurt, as if I'd betrayed them. And Dad? He was just tired. The bailiff opened the door. Travers v. the Morrison family, case 4829A. We entered. Judge Martinez, a woman in her 50s with a wary, searching gaze, adjusted her glasses. "Ms. Travers, you are asking to make the temporary restraining order permanent. Is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor." The defendants? The Morrisons' attorney stood up. "Yes, Your Honor. The family desires reconciliation through counseling and mediation. This is simply the result of misunderstandings and strong emotions." The judge inclined her head slightly. "The break-in incident?" He gulped. That was a mistake. Mr. Morrison believed his daughter was in danger. At 4:12 a.m.? He blinked. He was worried. So worried that he disabled the security system and removed property from her home. There was no answer. "Let's move on to the evidence," she said, nodding to me. I stood, walked to the judge's desk, and handed over the folder. It was all there. A recording of Dad wandering around my house with a flashlight, Kayla's live stream, their family chat, Mom's posts, doctored screenshots of Sabrina. The judge flipped through the pages slowly, her expression unchanging, but the air in the courtroom grew heavier. Finally, she looked up. "Mrs. Morrison, did you tell your daughter she could move into Miss Travers' house?" Mom straightened up. "Yes, we're family." She had space. "Did Ms. Travers agree?" "Well, no, but..." So it wasn't your decision. Then the judge turned to Dad. Mr. Morrison, the video shows you violating the restraining order and entering the house. Do you understand that that's a crime? Dad looked down. I wanted to help. Help by breaking into your daughter's house. He remained silent. Then her gaze landed on Kayla. Did you know your live stream violated the same restraining order? Kayla snapped, I was just showing people the truth. The truth about trespassing? Her mouth snapped shut. The judge turned to me. Miss Travers, do you have anything to add? I took a deep breath to keep my voice steady. For years, I was taught that boundaries were selfish, that no meant I was a bad daughter. But all I wanted was for my home to be mine, to be heard before I had to defend myself. They only heard when I forced them to. The judge nodded thoughtfully. I grant the motion. From now on, all defendants are required to stay at least 500 feet away from Ms. Travers, her home, and her place of work. No contact, direct, indirect, or through third parties. Any violation will result in arrest. Mom screamed, "But this is our daughter. You're forbidding us from even speaking to her?" The judge didn't flinch. No, Mrs. Morrison. I'm saying you've repeatedly trespassed on her property, damaged her property, and stalked her. Family is no excuse. The gavel fell. The restraining order is permanent. The hearing is over. Outside, the sun was too bright, too real. They followed me out, Mom crying, Dad looking at the ground, Kayla glaring at me with hatred. As Mom stepped toward me, the bailiff's voice cut through the air. "Ma'am, the restraining order is in effect." She froze. Her tears turned to cold. "I hope you're happy, Naomi." I remained silent. There was no need to be happy. All I needed was peace. I saw Derek in the parking lot. He was leaning against my car, holding 2 cups of coffee. Well, 500 feet, constantly. He smiled softly. That's a victory. It doesn't feel like a victory. Freedom rarely feels like revenge, Naomi. It resounds with silence. That's its strength. 3 months later, the house was still mine, but now it was also peaceful. The cameras remained, but I rarely watched the footage. The alarm went off automatically, like a habit, not a shield. One morning, while sorting through the mail, I saw an envelope. It was Amanda's handwriting, my older sister. Inside was a photograph, her family at the Thanksgiving table. On the back, "You were right. Boundaries aren't cruelty. They're necessary. I love you." I hung the photo on the fridge, next to Mrs. Chen's dumpling recipe, a postcard from Derek in Mexico, and a picture of me and Ethan at his office barbecue. People who didn't push. People who stayed. My phone vibrated. "Mrs. Chen, Sunday, dumplings again." I smiled. "I'll be there." Locking the house, I glanced at the small green light of the alarm. Steady. Calm. The house breathed quietly around me, alive, but inaccessible to those who would destroy it. And I suddenly realized the alarm wasn't just to keep others out. It was a reminder that I had the right to protect myself, that I decided who could enter. And for the first time, that green light didn't feel like a warning. It felt like home.